Dear colleagues and friends, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mohamed Chande Othman, former Chief Justice of Tanzania and member of the Africa Group for Justice and Accountability, AGJA. I've been invited to say a few remarks on behalf of Wayamo Foundation and AGJA, but also in close cooperation with our partners, Contraband, and civil society organization ever so vibrant in Sudan. I would like to seize this opportunity to say 5 remarks. The first one is that this is a unique opportunity for civil society organizations and all participants to discuss profoundly the change process that is going on in Sudan, but also to anchor more on justice, accountability, respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms, including the respect for the rule of law. The occasion is a unique one for all of us, and therefore I would like to wish everyone success in the deliberation at this forum, which is the first of its kind. But again, I think that when we chart the way, we will be able to discuss together the way forward. I think you know more than me that the change process in Sudan is now irreversible, and you as witnesses have bear testimony to that. So I wish everybody welcome to this forum. My second remark is that Sudan has a long history, a history that has been marked by years of armed conflict, political division and fragmentation, marginalization, gross human rights violations, including of humanitarian law, and we know the situation in Darfur since 2013, and economic and social crisis. So this again represents a unique opportunity for us to debate and to discuss some of the fundamental issues that are confronting us today here in Sudan, and how those can be overcome with everybody's participation. There has always been, in the Sudan that I know, progressive forces, and forces that has always deepened the development towards democracy and towards constitutionalism and the rule of law. So with the participation of civil society, women organizations, and in particular youth, who form the majority of Sudanese today, I think it is possible that together we can build a sustainable and durable peace in which has as its foundation, as I say, constitutionalism, the rule of law, devolution, and of course respect for fundamental human rights and freedom. The third remark, and this is consistent with the objectives of why we have gathered here today, is that in eradicating impunity, often a cause and catalyst for serious international humanitarian law and human rights violation, it is almost imperative that we should address and we should deal with legitimacy. As a former African head of state has said in relation to the Democratic Republic of Congo, as a former head of state of Congo, President Kabila has said, without justice, you cannot set aside justice if you want sustainable peace. And I think this is also applicable to the situation here in the Sudan. The other point which is important, I think, is that the protection of human rights and fundamental freedom needs to be guaranteed, need to be addressed, and most important, I think, need to be defended. And you and the youth being in the front line, I think this is a key determinant. The other consideration, of course, is the question of the rule of law, in which it is fundamental, and I think the Constitution of Sudan accepts really the rule of law, and it is entrenched in the Constitution of Sudan, and the question is how to make the rule of law effective, and how also at the same time to ensure that there is proper separation of powers between the executive, the legislative council, and the national and the federal and the state judiciaries. So there are important aspects that we will be addressing in this meeting, in this forum, and I think the time is really ripe that all these should be factored in your discussion. I think gender equality is equally important, including the participation of women, the participation of youth, and I think the principle of participation in democratic process, in a change process, is also imperative, and you as civil society actors have always been in the front line in this transition process. I know there is also the contribution of human rights defenders who have always been engaged really in the front line in the protection of human rights. So I think that this forum creates the necessary space so that one can chart the way forward jointly together in terms of developing the pathways for a new Sudan. It is imperative, again, that there be strong institutions. An illustrious head of state once said, Africa needs strong institutions and not necessarily strong leaders. Strong institutions require capacity building, sustainable capacity building, and I think that this forum, an exercise of this nature, which are also intended to build capacity, contributes to the building of Sudanese institution. I know that your constitution and the democratic process envisages about 12 independent institutions, Human Rights Commission included. And these institutions, as I say, the stronger they are, the more the rule of law, the more human rights, the more development, the more equality, and so on will be developed. So I think building strong institutions should also be one of the objectives, and we have to see during this workshop how we can all together see the best way of strengthening our institution for the defense of democracy, for the defense of human rights, and for accountability. My fourth remark, and this echoes, I'm sure, what you all know, that the Sudanese constitutional charter envisages a lot of what I have said already. There is provision under the charter on the rule of law. The charter foresees the participation of women, of youth, of other marginalized communities, groups in Sudan's democratic transition process. It enshrines also the Bill of Rights, in which 24 different rights have been enumerated. But I think also, and this I'm sure will also be focused in your discussion, is the list of comprehensive peace issues. So there is really nothing out of the ordinary. In the comprehensive peace issues, I note one of the major issues outlined is the fate of victims and survivors and their cry for justice, for transitional justice, for accountability, for reparations, and for compensation. So these are things that I say echoes already in what are the legitimate concerns and legitimate expectation of all Sudanese. And I think that placing faith in you, in civil society organization, and in youth, it is equally important. Finally, and some of you may be aware already that I was privileged to serve for 4 years, from 2009 until 2012, as the UN Human Rights Council's independent expert on the human rights situation in the Sudan. So I had occasion to visit numerous times the Sudan before the independence of South Sudan, so I had an opportunity really extensively to undertake fact-finding mission, to discuss with authorities, to discuss with the judiciary, to discuss also with victims of violations of international humanitarian law and human rights violations in Darfur. And in my years as independent expert for the Human Rights Council, I visited northern Darfur. I met internally displaced persons in Abu Shok. In southern Darfur, I visited Nyala prison. In western Darfur, I visited Hissa IDP camp in Zelenji. I was in Abyei. In Khartoum, I visited also Koba prison. So I interacted with a lot of people. But the cry, I think, for many, especially the victims that we should not forget and survivors, really is their constant demand for justice, for accountability, for durable peace, and for respect of fundamental human rights and freedoms. I think these voices, I'm sure you know more than me, resonate until today, because those legitimate expectations have not been fulfilled. And that is why it is of primary importance, really, that accountability cannot be sidelined, and other measures really to redress wrongs of the past, to resist crimes committed in the past and committed with impunity, should be at the forefront in devising mechanism for transitional justice that would address past atrocities, but also that would chart the way for a foundation for a durable and inclusive Sudan for all. So I wish you all success, and I wish you a productive meeting, and inshallah, I know that you will overcome and you will all be part of a new and inclusive Sudan. Thank you very much.